record. I almost forgot. Even with my big notice up here, I still almost forgot to hit record. So we are really excited today to offer you a training from Texas CASA that will stretch us a little bit. It might push our comfort zones a little bit, but it's going to be a frank and open conversation about cultural diversity and inclusiveness. And we are really blessed today to have Dennise Jackson from Texas CASA with us. You are going to love Dennise. She is she's a go-getter. She's a fireball. You read her bio. You know everything that she's done while she's been at Texas CASA and for the 30 years before going to Texas CASA. So she has a lot of experience in child welfare, child protection. She has an extensive resume. And so she's also got, you probably saw in the bio, all of the certifications and the experience that she has in cultural diversity and inclusiveness and the trainings that she does, not only at Texas CASA, but across the state, across the nation. So we're really blessed to have her today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple of announcements at the end about next week's Zoom with Nancy Capra. So please stay till the end if you can. We'll do door prizes like we always do at the very end. And so during this time, I'm going to ask that you keep yourself on mute. If you have questions, put them in the chat box, and then Dennise can address those as she has time. But now I want to turn this directly over to Dennise. So welcome, Dennise.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Glad to be here. Wow, and it's so exciting to see so many people on. This is great. You guys are very impressive to give up your time to have this discussion and to learn more, to see how we can better serve children, families, and your community. So I'm really excited to be here today. So one thing, Rebel mentioned that it is going to be a little interactive. It won't just be me talking. I will want to hear back from you. I have some guided questions that we'll discuss, things like that, right? So first off, I guess my first question would be, when you think of diversity, you know, you were told, oh, we're having diversity and inclusion training. I mean, I know that you guys got really excited about that. Couldn't wait to get here for it. Yeah, what comes up for you when you hear that? You know, like, we're having diversity and inclusion, or hey, we're having diversity and inclusion. So yeah, anyone, what comes up for you?
If you're going to say something, you'll have to unmute. Don't forget.
I think it's just the Rob Davidson. I think it's just something to see things from somebody else's perspective. I grew up with my family and all this, and then everybody else's experience is different. So we have to see things through other people's eyes to understand it, and I think that's what basically this means.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? I love that. Thank you. Someone put different, understanding different perspectives and the cultural differences. So whenever, I love what Rebel said, you know, you are going to stretch a little bit. Whenever we have these discussions, it does cause a lot of discomfort. And I just want to let you know that I'm actually okay with that, and I hope you can be too. I feel like discomfort can move people to do things a little differently, right? So sometimes discomfort is, you know, like if your shoes, you're going to move, right? You're going to take your shoes off. You're going to get a little bit more comfortable. So my job today is to give you some skills. So when you are feeling some discomfort, you can take your shoes off and feel better, right? You will have the information and knowledge and resource to be able to have these types of discussions. Okay, getting out of my skin in as far as possible. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm enjoying the chats. All right, so let's think about how we want to do this. I'm going to share my screen. So one of the things that I want you guys to walk away with is it's not so much about, so when you think about diversity and inclusion, there's so many definitions out there. Oh my gosh. cultural humility, cultural diversity, cultural competence, cultural this, cultural that. But my thing as an advocate, what I want you guys to be able to walk away, and Rebel shared, there's staff on board, there's board members. So you want to think about diversity in so many different ways. So as a board member, you may want to think about, okay, how do we diversify our board, right? To meet the needs of the community, to have representation of the children and families that you're serving, right? The same goes in the area of staff. You know, how do we meet that diversity? And definitely in the role of your job as advocates, how do we meet that diversity? So that might be looking at different types of campaigns. How do we recruit, whether it's men, whether it's people of color? And then I'm going to identify people of color as a way of making it easy instead of just naming off all the different groups there are. So if, and then for, you know, I use the term white, and I hope that that's not offensive to anyone, but there's this language that's out there, and I want to familiarize yourself with that language. So people of color normally refers to folks that are identify as non-white. And then all of us have that privilege to identify the way that we feel comfortable, if that makes sense. So one of the things that I would want for you to be able to walk away with is, how do we have these discussions? How do we talk to our children, whether they're your own children, whether they're the children that you're serving, your grandchildren? How do we have these kind of uncomfortable conversations? Because I don't know what it was like for you growing up, but in some households, there are certain things that we just didn't talk about. And now here you are volunteering for CASA, and you're being asked to probably engage in conversations that you probably like, I haven't had these kind of conversations before. So now we're just adding to that through culture and diversity and inclusion. So one of the things that I heard when I asked, what is diversity? What does that mean? What does inclusion mean to you? What does inclusion mean?
I'd say everybody's welcome at the table.
Everybody's welcome at the table.
One thing that I've been honored to get to do quite a bit of anti-racism work that I know sometimes can be problematic with the word inclusion, is that means that there is an includer and someone who gets to do the including. And so a lot of times I'll shy away from that word and look for words like equity, because that means that we are equal with each other. We're compatible with each other.
Okay.
And so sometimes I have a couple of friends who are people of color who have kind of alerted me to that they shy away from the word of inclusion sometimes because it sometimes can reference like a power differential.
Okay, great. Okay, so you have done something and used a word, I believe, institutional racism, correct? Did you use racism and use the word equity?
I said anti-racism word.
Anti-racism, okay. And anti-racism meaning you're fighting against racism, right? Okay. So those terms are usually very difficult for people to hear and understand, right? The anti-racism, racism, a lot of people, they don't want to have those types of discussions, right? So I'm glad that you're beginning to going a little extra, going a little further in your role as an advocate and having a better understanding. What else does inclusion mean? What else does it mean to you?
I'm a pretty visual person, so when I think of inclusion, I think of the lunch table and who gets invited to the lunch table and who gets to sit and who's, I automatically think of exclusion too. It's hard to think of that without it. And so I think everyone's invited to a lunch table, no one's sitting by themselves.
Okay. All right. I am actually trying to share my screen. Can you see the PowerPoint at all? Yeah. Can y'all see? Yeah, great.
Yes.
All right. So what I want to talk to you guys about is cultivating cultural responsiveness and advocacy. Like in your role as an advocate, in your role as a board member, or in your role as even as staff, how do you incorporate some of all the terms that's out there? So I wanted to focus on cultural responsiveness. I like that for advocacy because I think that as advocates, that's what you do. You're responding, you're being responsive to the needs of children and families. So I actually like that term. I wanted to step back a little bit. I love the definition, Amy, that you provided with regards to equity and equality. People talk about equity and equality kind of interchangeable. There's a little difference. And I'm sorry I don't have this visual, but one visual is of these three children, then they're standing on these steps, right? And they're peering over a fence to watch a game. But depending on the sizes really impedes how maybe everybody can view the game. So there's these tiered steps, and there's this one kid who's shorter, he's a little smaller, and he's on the bottom step. He can't see anything. So when people first started doing this, they thought, hey, equitable situation would be making sure all the steps are equal, right? I would push it a little further and say, let's get rid of the fence, right? Let's just get rid of the fence so everybody can flourish and have the things that they need. And so equitable is a really good definition to walk away with, because when you're working with children, they're all different. When you're working with youth, they're all different. So people like the term equality, but in some cases that's not necessarily true. In some cases you want to say, well, we're all equal. And in some cases that is not necessarily true. Like, because, some children may come from a two-parent home, some children may come from a one-parent home. Things are different. And so their needs may be different. So if you had a child that maybe has never had a great male role model in their life, and to say, well, we're all equal. No, you want to be able to see what that child's needs are and be able to help meet those. So, so let's look at this. So one of the things I'd like for you to do, I love doing this, and Rebel, I'll ask you to keep me on time, is I'd like for you to set your intentions. And this is something, if you choose, you can think about on your own, or you can write these down. And basically is, what ways do you want to grow as a professional, as an advocate at your program? And I wanted to focus on around this work of diversity and inclusion. So I want you to think about, what ways do you want to grow as a professional at CASA when it comes to diversity and inclusion? And I want you to take a minute just to kind of write down your thoughts around that. Okay. And then the second question is, you know, when you think about diversity and inclusion, what is one challenge in which you want to make progress? What is one challenge when you think about diversity and inclusion? And we define that as, you know, different cultures, you know, how people identify that may be different than you. You know, what is one challenge in which you would want to make some progress? So is there anyone who would be comfortable in sharing a way that you would like to grow professionally when it comes to diversity and inclusion?
Well, Dennise, for me as you know, director for the advocates, one of the things that I feel that I want to grow more and I want to push myself more is in being more intentional in the areas where I can recruit more people of color. And I know that part of that is our community makeup, but sometimes it's difficult knowing how to step into that and how to recruit in those areas. And then also in being more intentional in the way that we present these trainings to our advocates.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yes, absolutely. You kind of said like where you want to grow, and then also the challenge is being able to get into the communities and really get them to understand and see that this is a safe place and a good place to volunteer your services. And so we don't have time to discuss why maybe different communities don't step up as quickly as we would like to see happen. But I do know, like in your role as a recruiter, it's about building those relationships and it's about building trust, and how you would do that for them to see CASA as a option where they could provide a service. So thank you, Rebel. Thank you for sharing that. Would anyone like to share a challenge in which you'd like to make progress? Anyone else? As an advocate, maybe you experienced something and you didn't maybe feel like you had the knowledge or the information or how to react or respond to either a foster family, a child, a youth, maybe someone that was different from you, even in your life experiences. So what challenge in which you would like to make progress?
One thing for me, for specifically in my case, my CASA child, he said stuff about how men in his family, or men that he's seen in his family, how they treat women, and it's not good. And I'm trying to. A big challenge with that is to try to get him to change his thought process on that.
Okay.
And obviously, you know, he just turned 17, so he's got a lot of stuff built up in the wrong area. But and trying to connect with him to understand and make that thought process change. And that's a big challenge.
Sure. And you know, in depending on your young person or your child that you're talking about, is that person like this identify as the same race as you or not?
Yeah, no, and that's part of the one challenge. I also, you know, connect with people from a different background.
Sure.
He-
Right.
Different race, different, you know, single mom. In fact, grandma's raising them. So all the stuff that's very different from what I had. So
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That is definitely a challenge, right? Just in general, being a CASA advocate, maybe from where you're coming from and now what you're being exposed to is totally different. And what can you do to help these children have better perspective? And so I really can appreciate that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So the word that, I guess the definition that I want you guys to walk away with today is cultural responsiveness, the ability to learn from and relate respectfully with people of your own culture, as well as those from other cultures, right? Very simple, just the ability to learn from and relate respectfully. That seems like something that we can do, right? Yeah. So responsiveness, here's a definition, right? It's react quickly and positively. Respond readily with interest and enthusiasm. Openness, eagerness, acknowledging, understanding. Now, as an advocate, when you look at this definition, do you feel like that's kind of what you guys do automatically in a lot of situations? You know, you're being responsive to the needs of, you know, the children that you're serving. You know, you think that there have been times that you might have to react quickly. You feel like you always have to be positive, right? And what about respond readily with interest and enthusiasm? I like that one. That to me is what makes us special, I think, when you think about what these kids are going through. And then having openness and being eager, acknowledging, understanding. So, and I'm gonna go by the names that I can see on here. If that name is incorrect, you can let me know. But I was thinking about, you know, Robert, what you were talking about with respect to the young person. How old is your CASA child?
17.
17? Yeah, that's always a fun age, isn't it? Yeah, talking to teenagers, that's just easy. So when you think about, Robert, when you're talking with him and you're thinking about culture and being responsive, if you look at these definitions, do you feel like for the most part, that's where you fit with him? You know, if he's sharing these things, if he's talking about, you know, how he feels, what he's experienced in life that he hasn't seen, maybe positive male role models in his life. What is that like for you to be able to have that conversation with him? You know, so one of the things would be acknowledging what he's saying, right? Acknowledging, listening. That is so crucial, I think, when it comes to inclusiveness and diversity. Number one is acknowledging what that person is saying, because that is their experience. Does that make sense? And sometimes what we want to do, we're fixers, we want things to be better. And, you know, we can say things like, oh, well, you know, all men aren't like that. Well, that is true. We know that to be true. But in this situation, it's just really hearing what he's saying, right? And acknowledging that. I can understand that must be difficult for you, right? Just being able to listen and hear that. Then we're going to come up with some other tools to help you as you're walking him through, because basically now he needs to see someone different. And Robert, right now you're that person, which is great. And he's going to need to see people who look like him in his lives doing better, being a better role model. That's just the truth. So yes, you can be the beginning foundation to let him see that all men aren't always going to be what he has witnessed, but he also needs to see people who look like him being that kind of model as well, right? So as advocates, and you're advocating and things like that, how would you have a discussion around that and see where you could include men that look like him being a best person that they can be, right? So those are some of the things you could think about. Okay, so we looked at the definition of cultural responsiveness. What do you think prevents that from being part of your everyday life? So one of the things that I used to ask people, and we'll focus, there's so many things that we can focus on with diversity, but if we think about it in your role as an advocate, and you guys can help me, like more than likely you may be working with a child that comes from a different background than you, whether it's class, whether it's race, whether it's how they identify, you know, straight, gay, if that's how we want to say it, or neither, all. I mean, you're going to be working with children and families that are different from you in some of these situations. And if you think about just your everyday life, I used to ask this question in training. I would say, okay, it's like, let's say it's early in the morning, and I would say, okay, everybody raise your hand. Who had a discussion about race this morning? Most people wouldn't raise their hand, but a lot of people of color would raise their hand. It's something that we talk about comfortably with each other, right? It's a comfortable thing. We talk about race probably every day. Would love to talk about something different, but for the most part, we're probably talking about a race a lot. Our challenge, and I'll speak for myself, not everyone, is being able to do it cross groups, right? Being able to do it out of my group and with others that are different than me, and be able to talk about race freely. So when you think about your life and what's going on in your world, what do you think prevents cultural responsiveness from being part of your everyday life?
I think for me, it might be just maybe what prevents me from being sometimes entering into kind of those cultural conversations is not wanting to offend somebody and not kind of knowing where the triggers are. And so I might say something that I mean innocently, but it actually becomes offensive. So sometimes it's safer to just nod.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Oh, I'm sure you're not the only person that feels that way. Because I think that is so true, because it's something that we're not used to. And honestly, you never know, right? That what you may say that could have somebody be taken back by it, right? So you're like, oh, I'm not gonna say anything because I don't want, to offend. So that's definitely true. The fact that we are, in a way, fearful to have these types of discussions with each other. So very good. Thank you for that. So let's think about this for a minute. So let me make sure I have these other questions. So yeah, it's coming. All right. So I want to think about it. So I'm leading up, right? Because everything that we do, yes, we do it as an advocate, but how do you do it day to day, right? Keep it going, moving in your life when you're thinking about inclusion and diversity. So for this question, when it comes to inclusion, how do you foster an environment where people from different backgrounds feel valued. So I'm going to simplify that a little bit. Let me simplify that. So let's do something as simple as, if I walk into your CASA building, is there anything that I would identify that would represent me? Do you understand my question when I ask that? So you're recruiting me, you've asked me, you've been so welcome. I'm like, yeah, Rebel, I'm gonna come advocate. I love it. And then I walk into the building and I look around. Can I see something that I could identify with?
I'm trying to think through when you walk through. We're in kind of a unique building where it belongs to the county, so we're limited by what we can put out and that kind of thing.
Sure.
There's a couple of posters that have children of color on them.
Okay.
There are banners with men and
Okay.
and children of color.
Okay.
So we're trying to make that probably more than it has been in the past,
Yeah.
but we don't have as much as we could have, or maybe as I should pursue. It's just, we are kind of limited also by what we can put up by the county. But
Sure, sure.
so that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, and you had a good answer.
Oh,
so
thanks.
so okay, so think about that, right? So two things. I love what Rebel is saying. She automatically identified that maybe seeing children that look like me might be important, right? The other thing that would probably be important is even seeing advocates, right, that are doing the work. So in some offices that you walked in, and like Rebel is saying, it's limited, they have pictures, these beautiful pictures of advocates that have been serving children up on their wall. Yes, diversity is key to that. But it also reflects, I think, the power of who you guys are. So if I'm walking through the door and I can look around, and yes, if I'm a man, I see male advocates up on the wall, or I see people who look like me up on the wall, I'm going to start to relax a little bit and feel a little bit more comfortable. So when it comes to inclusion, how do you foster an environment? Now that's a physical environment. There's other environments, right, where people from different backgrounds feel valued. What are some ways as a CASA organization that you can do that, even as an advocate or a staff or a board member? What are some ways?
Dennise, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
I know you're talking about people of color, but I just keep thinking also about like the LGBTQ people.
Absolutely.
I'm always thinking about them because I know there's a lot of kids now that identify with that. I'm always trying to educate not only my family, but my friends about, you know, boys that identify as girls and calling them by the right he or she, not actually what they used to look like. Because a lot of my old friends have trouble with that. I'm like, it's not a he, she identifies as a she, so you need to call her by the right thing. So can that also be in this question?
Kelly, thank you for that. Absolutely. And I appreciate that question, because this is not just about race. Right now with children in foster care, there are like 30% of children in foster care nationwide that identify as LGBTQ, right? And the thing about these children, unfortunately, is they are foster children are already invisible. So then if you tap on how a person identifies and how they may be treated, they're even more invisible. So yes, like in your that's a great question. So in your organization, as it pertains to LGBTQ, what could be some things? Even as an advocate, you know, I don't know if you guys do you guys transport Rebel kids or your advocates back in the day? You know, back in the day when y'all could see your children, were you able to transport?
Well, only with permission. So
Okay.
we have to get a release. We go through certain things, but yes, they can transport with permission.
So Kelly, not to put you on the spot, what are some identifiers? Do you know some of the identifiers that a LGBTQ youth would see and recognize that you may be a safe person to talk to? Do you guys know what some of those are?
You mean as far as like identifying a person?
Not necessarily you would identify them, but let's say that you had something and they would know themselves that, oh, this person may be safe.
I just know they always just come to me as a safe person. I did some missionary work in the Philippines, and I was the one person that they all came to. I took some grief from that on a missionary work because they were the person that they just all flocked to me.
Okay.
So
here's some things, but it's simple, something very simple. Rainbow colors. You guys, are you familiar with that? The rainbow flag, rainbow colors, anything rainbow, like you could have on your folder, or you could even also have the equality sign, or things that people would identify. I always had a little rainbow teddy bear on my desk that when kids come in, they're going to automatically look at that. And these are just a few things. So basically, then a child, a young person is going to breathe and say, okay, this is a safe environment. And you don't even have to say anything. They already know.
Right.
They already know and understand. So there are certain things that you can do. So with respect to diversity and inclusion, for this purpose today, it's actually anyone who's different than you. And that could be religion, right? That could be race. That could be, when I say how someone identifies, I'm saying LGBTQ without saying all the letters, how I identify. I love that you're thinking about that. And that you can begin to even have a discussion around that. So that's exactly, and then if you think about it, I said, if I walked in and I'm identify as LGBTQ and I want to volunteer for your organization, am I going to see maybe a couple that would look like me or whatever, right? So these are things to think about, right? These are things to think about what works in your community and what works well. But it's important to foster an environment where people from different backgrounds feel valued. So they'll want to volunteer for your organization. And then more than just volunteer, they're going to want to stay. Because one of the things that I see happens when you go out and you tell people there's a need and we're asking you to come join us, and they come and join, and then they get in there and it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel right, they're going to leave. So I've seen that happen a lot, where the campaigns happen, people respond, they come in, but then you're losing them. So those are the things that you want to think about. How do you foster an environment where people from different backgrounds feel welcome? Now, we're only talking about diversity here. We would love for you to foster back, where people feel welcome no matter where they come from, right? So, but with respect to diversity, I'm focusing on that here. Okay. So now, how do you see cultural responsiveness, remembering the definition, openness, eager, acknowledging, I'm going to even put listening. How do you see cultural responsiveness in your role as an advocate? What makes this important in what you do as an advocate? Why are we spending an hour on this, right? What value do you see in this? Anyone?
I think it's always good to talk about this stuff, especially when we don't, like you said, might be uncomfortable or not enjoyable sometimes perhaps, but it's stuff that we need to do because I don't know the numbers, but I'm guessing a lot of us are in a culturally different relationship with our kids and the advocates, and we need to, if we're going to be the best for them, we got to kind of understand where they're coming from and how to bridge that gap between our, what we know and what they know.
Right. So when you think about the children that you're advocating for, and let's say whatever the situation is that if they identify as LGBTQ, are they in a heterosexual household? If they are of a child of color, are they in a different background home, right? So how, as an advocate, right, can you be responsive to a child's need, even if it means also educating foster families on how to better serve that child, right? Because I think that that's where your challenge is going to be. If you hear something, you see something, or a child even tells you something, how do I go and just begin to have this conversation with someone when we learned earlier that sometimes we fear how people may respond to us, right? So these aren't easy conversations to have with people. It's just they're just not. I wish they were, but that's not the case. Okay, so we've talked about some things, and I love that Kelly brought up, the fact that we usually talk about race. That's an assumption, and that is true in some respect. Here we want to broaden that, like when we're talking about differences, we want to broaden that. But are there any other assumptions that are resonating with you right now? Anyone that I haven't heard from? Are there any other assumptions resonating? No?
Dennise, I think I would say, it all goes back to listening, because I think sometimes we make the assumption that, oh, that would make me feel uncomfortable, or that kind of conversation would make me feel uncomfortable. We just assume that maybe based on how we were raised or what we believe. But I think it's important. It's just simple, just listening to someone, validating who they are and where they've come from and what they're going through. So I think it's just a simple act of listening in a conversation, and just opening yourself up to how they are feeling or who they are or where they've come from. So
thank you. Okay, so we've had this little kind of conversation. We got introduced to a new term. We're having a discussion around diversity and inclusion, but we all know that in the end, we want to know, what can we really do, right? What can we really do? So this is the skill, and you're not going to be able to learn it all today, like, oh, I'm going to be so confident and be able to do it. But it's the starting point, right? It's a jumping off point. And guess what? Guess what you can do? CASAs, we do this well. We can have courageous conversations, right? We can have courageous conversations with our friends, with our family, with the children that we're talking to, with each other. We can begin to do that. And that is taking that risk. And that is a little scary, I feel. It can be a little scary. So I wanted to teach you some skills around courageous conversations. So, have you ever had a conversation around race that didn't go quite the way you hoped it would, or around LGBTQ, or around politics? Woo, let's don't get there, right? Or religion. Have you ever had a conversation with someone that just didn't go right? Yay? No? Yes? Yeah. Right. So, and when you have those conversations, what's the thing that you don't want to do? What's the number one thing you want to do? Probably is get out of it. Right. So I'm going to challenge you to stay engaged. So one of the principles of having a courageous conversation is staying in there, staying engaged, right? So try not to check out. I love this. Don't let your heart and mind check out of the conversation. That's a challenge, right? To stay with someone who you're totally disagreeing with, and you're going to stay engaged in that conversation. But let me tell you, at Texas CASA, we've been doing this work for a bazillion years. I can tell you, I've been at Texas CASA for 17 years, and we've been having these discussions and talking and trying to make change in policy and all that stuff. And, you know, kind of ebbs and flows. Well, we have really in the last year and a half been really intensified in having these types of conversations. So I'm going to share with you that during this process, it hasn't been easy. So we had a facilitator come in, brought in all sorts of terms. I have gone very light today because we didn't talk about institutional racism. We didn't talk about white supremacy. We don't even get started on white privilege and all these conversations that we're having at Texas CASA that really can be offensive to people, right? Because they're like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Well, we had to learn to stay engaged. So when we started through this process of having these conversations, we'd go to the trainings, and that's what we would do. We'd all go back to our offices and literally started closing the doors. Doop, doop, doop. It was hard. I'm not gonna lie. It was hard. And we didn't want to really even have them. We were just, not long we're doing this every quarter. Monthly, teams had to come up with some stuff and say, how are you incorporating what you've learned into your day-to-day practice? It was hard. So we went through it. We continue to have courageous conversations. And I would tell you probably, gosh, a year later, we are making some really big progress in how we look at ourselves and how we look at our practices and our policies and how we want to disseminate this out to the network, because we know in the long run that children and families are going to benefit from us doing this type of work. So one of the things of having a courageous conversation is that you want to stay engaged. As much as you want to run and close doors like we did, you want to try to stay engaged, okay? Now, the other thing about having a courageous conversation is speak your truth. Now, if you've ever engaged in a discussion with someone, in this case, I am going to make it about race because I think race is the one that's really a little challenging for people to talk to, as well as LGBTQ. I think that those are really hard for people, right? But I would say when it comes to race, when I've been in trainings before, and I'm going to use the term white, hopefully I do not offend, that's not my intention. They're not talking. You know, they don't feel like this is a space for them to talk. They don't sometimes feel like they can bring anything to the table. And they also feel, like they said, I'm going to offend someone along the way. But having a courageous conversation, and here's the thing about this skill that you're learning today, there has to be an acknowledgement that everybody understands that you're having a courageous conversation. So that's what makes it great about all of you guys together, learning together, and being able to eventually practice together about having conversations around things that are difficult, right? So you get to speak your truth. You get to speak your truth. So to not speak your truth may lead to deeper confusion, mistrust, and misunderstandings, right? So if you just stop talking, then somebody's going to walk away thinking, oh, well, that person must agree with me, or that person disagrees with me. You've got to be able to speak truth. Does that make sense? Does it make sense to you guys? Okay. Now here's the fun part. Guess what? You're going to experience discomfort. When you have these conversations, you're going to experience discomfort. The important thing is that you, it's not that you're uncomfortable is okay. It's that, do you feel safe, right? So you're having a courageous conversation with someone. It's important to feel safe, but you are going to experience some discomfort. It's a very uncomfortable situation sometimes, having these types of discussions with people, especially when they don't agree with you, right? It's a little different. It's harder. This is my favorite. Expect and accept non-closure. Now, this is a little different, I feel, than our favorite little saying, agree to disagree, right? We've all had that, right? Have you ever been in a conversation and you're just like, okay, I just agree to disagree? Well, the thing about that for me is the dialogue may not continue. And it is okay to be in a conversation with someone. Whenever I go into these types of conversations, I already expect and accept non-closure. I already expect that. Now, before I went through all the trainings I've gone through, this was the hardest thing for me because I knew basically I felt like I was right. Have you guys ever felt like that when you've gone into a conversation like, I know I'm right, you're wrong? Well, this really expands your growth. This is kind of your, this is the thing that really, I think, pushes us to a better place with people, because the bottom line is, the thing about having courageous conversations is it's about relationships. The thing about cultural diversity and inclusion, it's really about connection. It's really about relationships, right? So when you're thinking about if you expect and accept non-closure, then that allows you to come back and say, you know, I've been really thinking about our conversation. I'm a little curious about what you mean when you say this, right? And it keeps it open. It's not accusatory. It's an open conversation. Okay. Any questions about courageous conversations? And then can you picture yourself having one, whether it's with a family, with a friend, with a foster family, with each other? Think about that. Can you picture yourself having a courageous conversation?
Donna Warren here, and I can picture a conversation like that. The thing that always may cause me not to have those conversations is that I'm always kind of afraid that when I go in, I have already been prejudged, you know, as an old white woman. You know, what have I got? They've already decided what I think and how I'm going to respond to things. And like you said earlier, you don't want to be misunderstood or misconstrued. So to have a frank discussion is scary.
Yes, absolutely.
Even if you're willing to have it.
That's right. That's true. That's true. Has anyone ever had one? I wouldn't say necessarily a courageous conversation, because that is a skill, right? To be able to stay engaged with someone, to be able to speak your truth, right? to be in a situation where you're feeling really uncomfortable, and then to be able to accept and expect that, my gosh, we might not even end up agreeing or anything, you know? Because so have you had a conversation that, you know, didn't go well? So someone says, yes, sometimes I will say, well, you've been given something to think about. I look forward to exploring this with you in greater detail. I really care about your thoughts on this. Wow, I love that. Right? Now think about that. Think about having a conversation with someone and they totally, oh my gosh, I have these all the time, right? Totally different than you are. Totally different. Their experiences are different. You know, I think about the children that you serve and the families that you work with, how different probably they are, even in their mindset, right? You're trying to tell them, hey, you got to do X, Y, and Z if you're going to, you know, even be able to visit your child or whatever the situation might be, and they're totally clueless. So here's the thing about having courageous conversations. Yes, you can use them definitely in your work of inclusion and diversity, but courageous conversations can be used in every aspect of your life, in working with families, working with CPS, right? Working with each other. This is, to me, this is like the best thing that you can begin to do, because in the end, we really want to connect to people. You know, in the end, we really want to have relationships, because we know relationships is what happens. That's when people begin to change in your relationships with them. They trust you. You can begin to influence and move them to maybe think about things they hadn't thought about before. Now, notice I didn't say think differently, but think about things they haven't thought about before, right? Think about that. Let's see, LGBT community and my difficulty in understanding the they pronoun. Yeah, okay, that's a good one. So the they pronoun means what? I'm not going to identify. It's like, yeah, you gotta like the young people. I'm gonna blame it on the young people. It's not just all young people, but I'm gonna blame it on them. They like to push back, right? So they're not gonna identify with the norm of he, she, the binary. No, right? They means that gender, like genderless, right, in some respect. And that allows for liberation and freedom and not to be labeled and put in a box. Does that make sense? Like, oh, if I'm female, I do things this way. If I'm masculine, I do things this way. They totally say no to that. So yes, instead of saying he, she, identify someone as he, she, they, which is hard grammar-wise sometimes. It's like, this does not fit, but we have to push ourselves in this arena because it's important for them to feel safe, right? That's a good one.
Hey guys, we're at the 1 hour mark. I have given Dennise permission to go a little bit longer, but I know some of you do have work schedules that you have to stick to. So really quick, if it's okay with Dennise, I'm gonna just make an announcement, and then we're gonna do our 2-door prizes so that you can go if you need to, but then the conversation will continue. And so one of the things that Dennise said that really has hit me is that the truth isn't, she didn't say it this way, I heard it. Truth isn't changing someone's mind, it's engaging in a conversation and being willing to let that conversation go over time, because it's an evolving conversation. And so I think that was really important for us to have this conversation today, and it's going to be an evolving process for us and conversation. So I want to say, before anyone takes off, I want to say thank you to Dennise for engaging us in that way, and for taking us there, and for opening that opportunity to learn and to grow as individuals. Next week, Nancy Capra is going to do look at how we can use art to engage with our traumatized kids. You do not have to be an artist to use art. So please join us next week. There'll be an email going out about that. And then really quick, Dennise, if you'll pick a number between 1 and 24.
Ooh. 8.
Teresa Howard. Teresa, you won a prize. Yay. And then we have one more prize. I got to figure out where it is. If you'll pick another number.
Oh. Pressure. 18. I like the number 8, clearly.
Jane Todd. Jane, are you on? So you get one of our cute little CASA masks.
Oh, wow. That is awesome.
Stacy Skeef donated these to us. So.
Oh, my God. I got to take a picture. Can I see that again?
Okay, yes. And then we'll draw one more of those. We'll draw for one more. Wait, I got to get it centered.
Oh, that is cool. Thank you.
Okay, pick one more number.
Okay. Oh, okay, what's my range again?
1 to 24.
Okay, I'll pick 24.
Amy Boone. Amy, are you still on? Okay,
Yay!
so those are our door prizes. I'll contact you guys direct. This will be recorded. I'll send out a link, because I know we had board members and friends that advocates that couldn't participate today. So if you need to get off, you're welcome to. But Dennise, we're going to continue the conversation, and so I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but I'm only.
No, I'm glad you did.
As long as you'd like to. So
No.
I'm handing it back to her.
Well, Rebel, thank you for that. And thank all of you guys for being here and staying engaged. This is actually the first time I've done it online. And I usually, if I do something like this, we would be doing a lot of exercises. So I really appreciate your attention to this. So,
and Dennise,
yeah.
Dennise, can I say, if this were in person, you would be jumping all around the room as well.
I would.
I see you in person.
I would. And it went faster than I thought. So yay for us for that. And Rebel, I just want to, thank you for asking me to come and doing this. I'm so proud of you guys for taking this on. I feel like the children in your community are lucky as, can I say hell? Are you okay with that in Abilene?
Yes.
Lucky as hell to have each and every one of you. This is exciting work. And so I'm so happy to meet some of you. And I appreciate everything that you do. I really, really do. I really, really do.
And we appreciate the support. Everyone at Texas CASA is always so willing to jump in, to do anything they can. Anytime we have a question, we have a need, you're there to support us. And so you guys didn't hesitate to say yes to this, and I really appreciate that. Your leadership, your guidance has been just crucial in us developing the advocates that we've developed. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
I'm happy. Thank you. Thank you.
So guys, do you want to take questions, Dennise, or do you have something else you want to add in before we go to questions?
I always love to know kind of what people are thinking after, like anything that's coming up for you right now with kind of what we've discussed. When you think about your intentions, you look back at your intentions, do you feel like you have some tools or resources to kind of get started, to begin to do this work?
So do you want to hear from them on some feedback, or do you want them to?
Yeah, that would be great.
Or do you want them to type it in the chat box?
Oh, they're doing a little both. Let's see. Great conversation. Aw, nice, great presentation. I appreciate that. conversations is important. Whenever people talk to me about diversity and inclusion, I just say, it's about connecting to people. It's about having a relationship. I can't say that enough, because when you have a relationship with me, guess what? You can make some mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? You can take a risk. And as some people say, I don't say it, but some people say, you can say things that people might think is stupid, right? I don't like that term, but sometimes people feel that, because when you have a relationship, hopefully you give your friends, the people you care about, grace. I know I do. So I feel like that to me is the beginning. It's like everybody goes, so how can we solve this? Well, we're going to have a relationship, and then we're going to do it together. And you're an important player at the table. What I really want people to understand, you're valued. You're an important player. What you think matters. Let's have a discussion about it. Because in the end, it's what we want to see for these kids, right? It's in the end. So we'll go in and have these kind of conversations, deal with diversity, deal with these issues. And I'm so glad that LGBTQ got brought up, because that is kind of a big challenge with our kids in the foster care system, because they're not actually being identified. And my experience way back in the day, as you know, I did do residential treatment center, and what I saw happen a lot of times to kids is that they're going to be moved from place to place to place because the other kids don't feel safe. Well, if you can go into a foster home or a group home and have a courageous conversation around that, it's like, well, what can we do to make them feel safe, right? Why does that child have to move? So I just think that, to begin to have these conversations, hard conversations with people, it's what's going to be best for all these children. Yeah. So I'm really proud of you as a organization, even mentioning the word, because in Texas, it's not easy to have these types of discussions.
No.
It's really hard. So I'm really glad that came up.
Well, and a couple of people even pointed out in the chat box that they shy away from conversations because they don't want to be judged for their truth or for engaging in that conversation. So it can be scary at times. Sure. So I think this helped us all to feel a little bit more confident in starting that conversation.
Great.
Questions, you guys, or statements?
Right. If anybody has any questions for me, great. I don't want to just keep y'all. With this social distancing, I know we have so much to do. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Anybody, and you'll have to unmute if you have a question that you're going to voice.
Yeah, someone said, I love the reminder to stay engaged and not to check out. Oh yeah. I'm glad to know it's normal to be concerned about being misunderstood. The important thing is keeping dialogue moving and being okay without having resolution. Man, that is true. So it's really difficult, but true.
So I guess I was really resonating on the past conversations that I've had before on the topic of race. And I kind of came to the realization that pretty much all of the conversations I have had were with people that I trust and that I'm close to, and they kind of already know my intentions. So if I kind of stumble up or maybe say something that I didn't really mean it that way, but I'm trying to learn, that they know where I'm coming from. But I guess my question is, what is your biggest suggestion if you're having a conversation with someone you don't really know that well? Just kind of a way you can be upfront and be like, I'm not trying, I just want this to be an open conversation, and like, I respect everything, like all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question. So my question back would be, if it's someone you don't know that well, like give me an example of how you would be in a conversation like that. Is it maybe a situation where you heard something that maybe a person said, a lot of times what happens if we get in these situations, we're overhearing stuff and we're like, oh, I want to address that. I want to deal with that, right? So what would that scenario really look like?
So I guess I've been in a few situations where it might have come up with people that I'm not terribly close to. I'm still in school. I'm getting my master's, so sometimes in group projects or just in class, or even just at, different functions, it just kind of comes up, and I just don't feel comfortable enough to voice my opinion because I feel like if I am with people of a different race than me, I'm white, and so I don't feel like I have the right to state my opinion.
Right. So that is a great question. Oh, wow. Yeah. So not being an expert in this, but maybe sometimes it's okay just to listen, right? It just really is. Because sometimes people are just in their world, in their moment, in their feelings, right? And then it's okay to acknowledge, oh, yeah, oh, I understand, or wow, that must be difficult for you, right? Anything like that. And then my favorite thing is to always, well, tell me more about that. Tell me more, right? Those are my, like, I love to ask questions before like making a conclusion or a statement. And if I'm in a situation where someone is different from me and they're sharing their story, that's what we got to remember, people. And sometimes that's really hard for us if we can't relate to it, right? If we can't, I don't understand exactly what this is, right? But you got to remember, people are telling a story. They're telling their story. And sometimes what's needed is to maybe acknowledge it, even if you totally disagree. And the key is still having a relationship. So if you're with these students day in and, however you guys study together, and you're listening and listening and listening, then there'll be a time where you might be able to say, oh, tell me more about when you said blah, 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 right? Because we don't always have to know and be that expert. We might be on a discovery to better understand, because then it's about you forming a relationship where you can begin to have a courageous conversation. So I would tell anyone, don't start out having courageous conversations with anybody. Not going to work. You're going to be very disappointed. Find a safe place to practice staying engaged, right? Speaking your truth, especially speaking your truth. Especially as a white person trying to talk in a different group, right? You definitely want to have a relationship with that. It could not work. It might not work well. So if you have a relationship, then you can make those mistakes. So I hope that that's helpful. But I always like to ask questions when I'm really, especially if somebody's saying something I totally disagree with. I'm like, oh yeah, tell me more. Yeah, what makes you feel that way? Oh, has that happened before? Oh, you've experienced that? And most of the time they're like, no. Okay, yeah. Okay, I hope that's helpful.
I have found, I have a friend who is of color, and I've even done it with like somebody who's serving me at a restaurant or something. If there's a huge race issue, which it's always going on, but sometimes it's in the news more than others, I have said, with relationship to this, can you just tell me what it's like from your side? And even strangers are usually really okay and excited that you asked, because I'm telling them I don't know, because I'm a white girl, what their situation is, but I want to learn. I want to have a different perspective and just see things from, or at least know how they see it, because I'll never be able to see it completely the way they do, but just to learn.
I love that. So I appreciate what you're saying. So you're curious, you want to know, so you're going to ask questions like, well, what is that like for you, right? Because we don't want to make an assumption that people all, certain groups' experiences are the same, because they are not. There are some people that may have not even understood that they've even experienced anything different, right? So you don't, maybe you don't want to make that assumption. So you could just ask, what is that like for you? If blah, 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 something happens, what is that like for you, right? Now, one of the things that, and I truly push, like there's so much information out on the internet now. There's so much stuff that you can read for yourself and learn for yourself, right? That also take in consideration that if I've experienced something that isn't good, and maybe I've even experienced trauma behind it, then sometimes reliving that is not. So you want to be careful, because sometimes people need to have a story, and we need to hear a story to feel what, you know, this person is experiencing. Sometimes that can also be difficult for people. So, you know, like even if you are asking that question, they may respond depending on the relationship that you have with them. And then in other situations, they may be hesitant. So I just wouldn't want someone to think that they could ask people that. So I like the question.
I always caveat with, you know, and if you don't want to tell me, you don't have to.
Sure.
You know, I'm not trying to be
Yeah.
offensive or anything. I just don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's true. But, you know, if you haven't experienced something different, then you don't know. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's important even with our cases, because most of what our kids are facing, we do not understand. We might have experienced trauma in different ways, and sometimes even in similar ways, but their experience is unique to them. So being able just to say, tell me how you feel about this situation. You know, one of my cases, they idolize mom, who's in prison and has done terrible, horrible things. And mom is, you know, the matriarch. And it's hard for me to conceive that type of loyalty to a child. So when I ask them, tell me, they'll say, well, I wish you could have seen her before.
Yeah.
And so they remember her more before. And that's what I finally got to when we were able to get to that place where we could have that conversation. So I think asking that type of question in the right setting is a good thing, even for our cases.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And I think that that's important. When it's all said and done, when you can, like you said, active listen to a young person and acknowledge what they're saying. Just acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. You know, it is okay for them to feel the way that they feel. And, you know, and then helping them see what is true.
Yeah.
Right? How do you help them see what is true? Yeah. And for them, if they still love their mom, I mean, there's nothing that you can really do about that. But what is true and what's going to be better for them moving forward in the situation that they're in. So that's great, Rebel. That's awesome.
So guys, what other questions? Anything else for Dennise?
I have something. Dennise, a minute ago, you said something about trauma. Yeah. And so my mind kind of got hung on that. Yeah. I had a situation one time where I had a girlfriend of mine. I had really long hair. I've always had long hair, but I had really long hair. And she said, oh, your hair would be beautiful if I braided it. Well, and my girlfriend was black. So we sat for 7 hours and she braided my hair. And I was about 28 years old. I loved it. And I mean, it was easy, and I wore it like that for about 3 weeks, you know, and then it started to hurt because it was so long and heavy. But at that time, I had a coffee shop that I owned. And I was in there one day and just being me, waiting tables, checking people out and all that. And a lady who was also black came in to my coffee shop, and you know, we went to church together for years. And I had known her for years, and it was the first time she had seen my hair like that. Mm-hmm. And she invited me to go out back in the parking lot and talk to her. And I thought, okay, well, sure, I'll go on out there, Pat. And so we walk out the door. I have no idea what I'm in for. Mm-hmm. And she really chewed me out about wearing a black lady's hairstyle when I'm a white lady. And I had no idea. I was completely clueless. And I said, well, you know, my friend suggested it. She's black. She wasn't offended. She suggested it for me. And so, you know, I wonder when you said the thing about trauma, maybe my friend Pat had experienced, there's some trauma there around. I still don't understand what the deal is about hair. You know?
Yeah.
That was pretty traumatic for me because after that, she didn't speak to me anymore.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That's unfortunate.
It was.
So that is, I love that. First off, I love the story, both. I'm sorry for what you experienced, but I love the story. I love how, see, you cannot generalize, right? Because everybody's experience is different. Right. So for example, I'll share a story. When I was in kindergarten, and it's still, you know, trauma, it kind of lasts with you. I grew up in an all-white community. I was adopted. My parents were African American, but the community was white, rural USA. I showed pigs, and I was good at it, I might add. But the reality was, the first time I started school was the first time I got exposed to being around predominantly white children. And hair, this is related to hair. So for now I go natural and I have to worry about all this, but back in the day, there are all sorts of things that we had to go through. Hot combing, it's trauma, you have no idea. So, but the difference is that for the texture of my hair, oil is essential for black children's hair. It's essential, right? Now, if you think of oil as a white person in hair, are you going to think that's clean? If you say, oh, oily hair, yeah, no. So when I would have to take naps, my hair was really like oiled down, right? And so I would get up from the mat, and guess what? There would be a stain there, right, from my hair. And so kids would make fun of that, right? Because they didn't know. Oh, you got oily hair. You got dirty hair. So guess what happened every time it was time for me to take a nap? What do you think I did? You think I laid my head down when the teacher told me to lay my head down?
Wow.
I did not. And then the teacher and I, now we got a problem, right? Because nap time is essential in kindergarten, right? So I was pushing back. So I think, and oh gosh, we can have a whole discussion around this. This could be a big deal about beauty and how women of color are viewed, and beauty and hair. And so there's this term called appropriations. Have you heard that? Like, for example, if something could start in a community of color, right? Like braids, let's say. And back in the day, I don't know if some of you guys, this will tell your age, if you ever saw the movie 10. I can't remember who the star was, right? And she wore braids. Yeah. Well, before that, braids weren't looked upon as a cool thing. But as soon as this blonde white woman put on braids, it became a fashion statement. And it's appropriation. That's where we might come up with something, but we don't benefit from it at all. So where you encounter somebody who knows you, trusts you, cares for you, says, hey, I'm going to braid your hair, right? And you encounter someone that you know from church and things like that, but you don't really have a relationship with that person. You know them, right? They're not close to you. They made an assumption about you, and the assumption was wrong. So, you know, that is so unfortunate. And things around race and LGBTQ is so volatile because of our experiences. And so, you know, in a situation, if something like that happened, it would be great to have a courageous conversation with that person, right? To be able to speak your truth, which you did, right? And in this case, what skill would you have to utilize in this case with that person? You got stay engaged, you spoke your truth, right?
Right.
Did you experience some discomfort?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm
guess
talking about
what?
it today. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You have to accept and expect non-closure, right?
Right.
Yes. That is the key to this journey when you're talking to people, because everybody's experience is different and they may not be at a place where they can hear what you're really saying. And so that accepting and expecting and accepting non-closure allows for you to encounter again, whether it's that same person or a different person. Does that make sense? Because if you have a poor interaction with someone, a poor conversation with someone, it is going to make you shy away from having those conversations. And I just want to encourage you guys not to do that. Not to do that.
Thank you, Dennise.
Yeah. Somebody put Rebecca put like a website. Yeah, what is that?
A great book for kids of color to accept and love themselves.
Oh, great.
There's a whole series of them. And the one that always I remember the most, because I think it's so cool, is Big Hair Don't Care. And it's a story about a girl of color who had big hair, and she just embraced it. And it's a woman of color has written this whole series of books.
That's great.
That are, for kids to embrace themselves in different situations that are different about themselves.
Right. I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, guys, do y'all have more questions or statements for Dennise before
I'm sorry,
we?
It's taking longer than we thought.
That's great. I love the conversation.
Okay.
Anybody?
I have a question. As we become more inclusive and work on the, putting posters up, whatever, we sometimes tend to find ourselves turning off people, right? So how do you kind of, some advice or tips around that, and I'm not saying that's a good thing that we turn off people, but as you become more inclusive, sometimes people step away from that.
That is such a great question. Is a great question. But before I answer that, who's in your arms?
I have a 2-month-old baby in my arms.
Oh, congratulations.
And so, she should be sleeping, down, but I like to hold her and she likes to be held sometimes.
She's doing great. She's like subliminally learning all this, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the risk. That's the risk. We recently had someone leave our organization. They wrote this letter to all of us, and we love this person, and this person loved us, but they said, hey, I can't deal with all of this diversity and inclusion. They thought that it was dividing us as an organization. And they they retired, and they said, I'm out of here. And that was part of the rationale. And that is a risk when you get ready to diversify and bring inclusion and have these topics that you're talking about. It is going to cause some people to really experience some discomfort. And you may lose some people. That is true. And that is the risk in doing this work. So that's one of the things that, as you prepare to diversify your organization, if that's the road you're going down, is to really get people prepared for what that could look like. And how do you have a welcoming organization, and how do you have courageous conversations because of people's experiences coming in? So for example, I can only speak for myself. Family would be a big deal to me. Family would be a big deal. I would want to work with family. I would want the family to be okay, all that good stuff. And so if I was working with a case supervisor that did not understand that value is important to me, we would probably bump heads, right? So that's why, like, you begin to have that's what I love about our role of CASA and the way that even our organization is set up, that there's that one-on-one relationship that your case supervisors and your volunteers, right? Coaching with them and working with them. Or you're going to work with someone who totally says, I can't work with a gay child. Are you kidding me? You know, how do you help that person in the organization understand why it's important and how you work with all children, right? Because some people will say, let them go, right? Some people might say that, but if these qualities are strong, then I think that we give a person a benefit of the doubt that we can expand their mind, So that would be, okay, you know what? You're working with this family or you're working with this child, and, you know, we're going to get you some more training because we really believe in you. And I want you to be a little bit more open to understanding what's in the best interest for this child, right? So it's hard in that situation. That's such a great question, because I would not want anybody to feel, because it does feel good, oh, we're going to diversify and have some inclusion. We're awesome. No, it's a painful process sometimes. It is a painful process. It's worth it, but it's not easy to do it. If that was the case, we'd all be doing it. So it's not easy, and you're going to be at risk at losing people, and good people. And that's, you know, that's the thing. And our thing is, like, if we're expanding, then you can bring more people in, right? That's going to fit within the organization, but being welcoming of people that have differences, including the ones that maybe have differences in how your mission is being practiced, right? It's a challenging thing. But yeah. I would tell you, you know, like Angela, Rebel, yes, there's a possibility that you might lose some advocates, maybe. Hope not.
Well, I think it's great opportunity for us to grow, and I'm really excited by everyone that participated today, and we're going to have it available for all of our advocates to watch. And if they have some specific questions, Dennise, may we forward those to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And if you guys want to go further and do other things, there's so much information around this that I'm happy we can go further and deeper. Like, I like to do things like, for example, this is just like kind of basic, but like if you had a group of people that said, hey, I want to go deeper, I advise, like, if you've got a group that says they want to do that, then let's do that, right? I never advise taking everybody deeper right away. Yeah. It's just not fair, because everybody's at a different place. But if you've got a group of people like, yeah, I want to know more, and then they're willing to be challenged, it'll be a different place for them.
Okay.
Different area, because then you can focus in on the different groups. Like if somebody says, hey, I really want to learn more about LGBTQ, right? So you could have a training around for the people who really want to know more and serve that population. So that's also my recommendation. I love the fact that you've engaged everybody in this, and that's a foundation. That's where you should start. But then you can think about, as you're advancing people to learn more about this, like who you would identify to do those types of trainings, because you don't want to push everybody out the door. You got to start somewhere.
That's exactly right. Well, thank you for kicking this off for us. Angela, Laura, Sandra, anything y'all want to add? Teresa? Anybody?
Thanks so much, Dennise. We appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you doing this. What a bold program to bring this to your advocates online, I might add. So thank you for that experience.
Well, thank you for going there with us. You made it a joy. It was informational. It was very beneficial, and it's always a joy to get to be with you, even if it is virtually.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. All right, guys. Have a great day.
Bye, guys. If y'all have any questions, email me. I'll be sending out the link by email here soon. And thank you again, Dennise. We appreciate you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Okay, guys, I'm going to end the meeting. Unless you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. If not, email me and we'll pass it along. But thank you guys for going there. Thanks for your conversation today.
Bye.
Bye.